Hi, this is Frank Tortorice, the Diabesity Doc, today with extreme pleasure to be with Ben Greenfield.
How's it going?
Great. Noted author, triathlete, and he's done a lot of recent things with his website, and we want to talk today about diabesity or diabetes, and I think our audience would love to know what your tips are for diabetes and physical exercise.
Yeah, sure. I don't necessarily do a lot of disease management per se, but as far as diabetes is concerned, especially with regards to type 2 and the onset of type 2, generally what you're looking at in someone is trying to feed them carbohydrates when they're in that state where activity of non-insulin dependent glucose transporter pathways are going to be highest. And that's what I personally do. Like I've done 23andMe genetic testing. I know I have higher than normal risk of type 2 diabetes. I have 2 grandparents who had type 2 diabetes. If I don't use the proper strategies, I'll have high hemoglobin A1C, high glucose, high insulin, all those things that show that I could myself have type 2 diabetes, even as an exercising individual. I mean, because I've tested without the type of strategies that I'll expound on and with, and without, no matter whether I'm training for Ironman or not, my glucose is always a little bit dysregulated. So the way that I recommend doing things is simply saving the largest bolus of carbohydrate for the end of the day, preferably in a post-workout scenario. And that's the type of thing you'll hear folks like John Kiefer from Carb Backloading recommend. And it was very interesting because this was an approach that I had found to manage my blood sugar quite well. And then I actually found his program and realized he was doing the same thing with a lot of his athletes. But the idea is resistance training or high intensity interval training upregulates those non-insulin dependent glucose transporter pathways. And so it's not about avoiding carbohydrates or restricting carbohydrates or doing even a ketogenic diet per se. It's about timing the carbohydrates. And so I generally eat about 100 to 200 grams of carbohydrates. This is what I encourage most of my athletes to consume as well. So you've got enough carbohydrates on board for everything from thyroid conversion to joint health to mucin production, all those things that you need them for, but you're timing them in a state where the pancreas has very little stress when you actually do consume it. That's a strategy that I found to work really well. And incidentally, some people do go for like a lunchtime aerobic run or an aerobic bike ride. You don't get upregulation of those pathways unless you actually go into glycolysis or you go to an anaerobic state. So it's very important that you do weight training or high intensity training if you are going to be using that approach.
That's awesome. What about for some of our audience who maybe just starting out, really aren't an elite athlete or even that active? What's the best way for them to start out? Let's say they're middle aged and they've heard some of your stuff, your podcasts, or they said, we really want to start being more active. We're never will be an elite level athlete, but we want to get the process moving. What do you have for that type of person?
The most important thing to understand is that while what I've just highlighted is like an exercise prescription in a bottle, right? It's like go at the end of the day, do some high intensity training or do some resistance training. It's more important that you manage blood sugar throughout the day by engaging in low-level physical activity and what are called hormetic stressors. So, for example, exposure to cold showers, cold temperature, maybe sleeping in a cold environment, that can enhance your insulin sensitivity. It can enhance your ability to burn glucose, upregulate metabolism, and a lot of people just spend their lives driving around in air-conditioned cars or heated cars, air-conditioned or heated homes, basically never subjecting their bodies to that mild calorie burning stress of regulating temperature. The poster I presented at the Ancestral Health Symposium was all about standing and squatting and lunging and getting into all these different positions during the workday that also upregulate metabolism, lipase, fat burning enzymes, and then breaks throughout the day for jumping jacks, little pull-ups, body weight squats, push-ups. If you get to the end of the day and you've been engaged in that type of activity the whole day, exercise is an option, right? And exercise, I would say, is a necessity if you want to go compete in the CrossFit Games or run a 5K or get really good at tennis or something like that. You still have to structure exercise. But if you just want to be healthy, I mean, you can try and somehow simulate a hunter-gatherer, gardener type of lifestyle, even if you are working in an office. And if you're able to hack your environment in that way, that's really the best place to start, is to just understand that it doesn't start by joining a gym and visiting the gym. It starts by just getting off your feet.
So those are really great tips. What if our audience wants to follow what you'll be doing in the next month or two? Any or your podcast, your website, some of your stores? Can you tell us where they can find more of you?
Yeah, probably the best place is just bengreenfieldfitness.com. That's where I blog, I podcast. I've got links to some of the other things I'm doing. But yeah, that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, I'm on that every day. It's awesome. Yeah. I think it's one of the best, and I encourage all our audience to go to that site. It's not only for elite athletes; it's for people who just start out as well. It's news to use, and it's the latest and greatest. I agree.
Cool.
Thank you so
thanks,
much.
Man.
Thank you.